Hello crypto traders, this is Matthew with Crypto Traders Pro, and today we're going to be going over tip number 2 of our how to grow a small cryptocurrency trading portfolio. In this episode we're going to be talking about scaling, how to scale into a trade and how to scale out of a trade to maximize your profit potential. So in this episode, I want to take it back all the way to November 2017. We're going to go over the Litecoin chart, and the reason I want to go over this chart is because this was actually a trade and position that I was in, and this was my largest trade in my entire trading career. This is a 6-figure trade for me. Now what's really unique about this to me is that I was able to document and record this entire trade over the course of a month. And day by day, I was coming on here recording my thoughts, what I was looking for on the chart, and what I was looking to do. I was able to capture me scaling into my positions, scaling out of my positions, taking profits. So recording this entire trade really helped me out because it helped me stay focused and really look at what I was trying to do and focus on the bigger picture. I was really able to remain patient by documenting it and recording it, and it also allowed me to make my biggest trade ever. So let's jump right here into the trade, and we're going to be looking at Litecoin USD. So let's now take it over to TradingView. We're going to be looking at the Litecoin chart. So what I really like about TradingView is using this replay feature. This replay feature allows you to go back on the chart. You could pick any day you want and start it from there. So you're not able to see what happens on the rest of the chart. It really helps you, I guess, with practicing and reviewing what your trades were. So we're going to start it on the day I actually bought into Litecoin. And this is all going to be focused on scaling. Here's what I started to notice on the chart. I saw that it was starting to form an uptrend, something similar to this. It was making higher lows on the chart. Here's the first lowest point after this crash. This crash wicked all the way down to the 30s, which was absolutely crazy because there was a massive run all the way up to nearly $100. It crashed all the way to 30 and rebounded. So this move I kind of ignored. I actually played this previous move, locked in my profits, and decided to jump back in later on because I was a little bit unsure of where it was going to end up. So I wanted to wait until a clear trend established because that's where I have an edge. I was able to kind of figure out what the chart was doing, and I would be able to establish a risk level rather than trying to catch this bottom wick. It would have been a really good entry, but I just wasn't paying attention to it at the time. So I got into Litecoin first here, and the reason was because I noticed it was starting to form this new uptrend. It was making higher lows on the chart. So my first buy on Litecoin happened to be 100 shares worth of Litecoin. I got in somewhere in the high $60 range, and what I noticed is, okay, it's making this uptrend, but where is the resistance at? Well, I'm noticing that there's some resistance here because previously on the chart, it got up to this area and it rejected. It came right back down. I also noticed over here, this resistance, what's resistance now, was acting as support here. So I could tell that this is a key level on the chart, right about the $66 area, the mid-60s. So I actually bought some Litecoin here, and it was a terrible entry. But here's kind of where the lesson comes in, is scaling. So scaling is when you slowly buy into position. You don't buy in all at once. You slowly scale into the position. Some people call this dollar cost averaging. I've always referred to it as scaling into a position because I come from the stock market, and a lot of people in the stock market use the word scaling rather than dollar cost averaging. So scaling into a position is when we slowly build a position. We're not looking to go all in at once. We're looking to slowly average in. So my first order here was in the mid-60s, like $63, $64 range, and I bought 100 shares. So 100 shares, it might sound like a lot, but I had a bankroll that was able to buy maybe 1,000 or 2,000 shares at the time. So what I'm doing is slowly adding a position. If 100 shares would be too much of your bankroll, maybe you add 10% of your total bankroll at the very first entry. So this is going to tell me, even if Litecoin does come back down here, because I was using this trend line as my risk area. So if Litecoin does come back down to this trend, I'll have plenty of room to add. But if it did break out, I mean, there was a possibility it could break out. I didn't know because, of course, I couldn't predict the future, but there was a possibility it would break out, and I wanted to have some skin in the game in case it did. So Litecoin rejected off this area. I bought 100 shares. Let's see what happens. the next day absolutely just crashed. Of course this does happen, and you guys might think this happens to a lot of you. So this is where scaling really comes in. I only had 100 shares, so I'm like, okay, it's not that big of a deal. And what I did was actually buy more. And the reason I bought more is because it was still holding this trend line. And I told myself before I even went into this trade, as long as Litecoin is holding this trend line and keeps making these higher lows on the chart, it doesn't fall out of this zone. Like here, I would have cut my loss if it did this. But as long as it's holding this trend line, I'm going to keep buying into my position. I'm going to average down because this is going to get my overall price lower. So right now, first entry $63. I actually got more at like $57, somewhere on this wick. So now my average price is like low 60s, which is pretty good because right now it's at $61. So let's see what happens. So this entire time I'm thinking, okay, it's holding this trend line. It just kind of tested that bottom area again, still kind of bouncing around, and boom, there we see the breakout. So during this entire time right here, let me clean up the chart. During this little consolidation phase, I was averaging into my position, slowly building more of a position because it was, again, holding this trend line. And as long as it was holding that trend line, I'm telling myself, okay, I'm going to keep adding into my position because if it does drop below, I have a small risk. It was maybe 10% at most if it fell through. But this trend line was holding, and I figured, okay, it's making this ascending triangle pattern. Maybe we see a breakout. And that's exactly what happened. We saw the breakout. So after we see the breakout, what am I going to do? I just talked about this in the last video. I'm sure you guys know. I'm going to move my stop loss up, but I'm going to wait for the retest. I want to see where the candles close. So look at this. We talked about this in the last video. Tip number 1, move your stop loss up. I love playing this pattern, the breakout retest pattern. We see it break out from a key resistance level, comes back down, retests that area on the chart. Look, it lines up perfectly. Breakout, past here, resistance, resistance, breakout, come back down. Now retest that area of support, holds. So keyword, it holds here, and I'm adding even more. I've also now moved my stop loss up to $66. So no matter what happens on this trade, I'm in the profit. We just talked about this in the last video. I hope you guys are picking up quickly. So now that I'm in the profits, no matter what, I am comfortable adding and just adding and adding and adding. Because as long as it's holding this area, I am going to make money. So we saw some consolidation, then the next leg up. So again, this entire time I was adding into my position, adding to my winner. Keyword, because again, I only had a small position here. I maybe had in this whole part under 500 shares, and I wanted to add up to 1,000, 2,000 shares. And what I was doing, I was playing this on Bitfinex with leverage. So I was leveraging out my Litecoin that I already owned to buy more Litecoin. This was like, I guess, super risky, but I was also very confident in the trade, and I'm also very confident in my trading abilities. So I wanted to buy more Litecoin with my Litecoin that I already own. So it's like a double win. So we see it break out here, has the next leg up. I'm adding to my winner, and I'm just like, I'm getting euphoric because it's coming up to all-time highs. I have a massive win under my belt. At this point, I was up like 26,000 or something, and I see it's coming up to resistance. So there is a resistance level. This was the previous all-time high, and I figured it's going to get stuck here. So I didn't add on these two huge candles. I wasn't adding to my position because it's a little bit risky. I see it getting a little bit overextended on the chart, and I figure it's due for a pullback. And there we go. It just broke all-time highs, and boom. Oh man. So let's talk about this day for a second. So I was just adding and adding and adding to my winners kind of carelessly, and I knew some sort of pullback would happen, but I didn't know it would be to this extent. And what's really crazy is basically across the board, all these coins had a similar candle like this. But I figured since it's still in an uptrend, I was good to go. I could keep adding into my position. So instead of panicking and selling here, I actually bought more on this wick. I got filled in the low 70s. And I didn't panic out here because, again, it's still in the uptrend. The overall trend is very much intact. So I wanted to see what was going to go on the next day. I wanted to see if the next day would close green. And it did. It's showing signs of strength again. We saw some large buying volume come in, and we saw the next push up. Now it's heading back over to all-time highs. But what's really struggling here, I see, is that it's not closing above 100. So right now, I see it's consolidating above the previous all-time highs. This is a great indicator to me that, okay, it might be ready for the next leg up. But at the same time, it's struggling to close over that $100 area. Let me draw a resistance here. So $100 area, it's closing at like $99. It's wicking over there, but it's not able to hold its gains. That one did, and then it came right back down, and it had another pullback. So during this time, what I actually did, I kind of got emotional, and it's funny because I'm having like flashbacks to this moment, because I recorded this entire thing. It's all in the course. I've watched it myself several times over, just to see how my emotions were playing out, because it's really interesting to document your trades like that. So what we saw on this day was a huge, massive red candle. I was confident in the trade, but at the same time, I saw like all my gains taken back from me. So I was up massive on this trade, and then the next day I was just like down. And I'm like, wow, it's just a terrible feeling. So when I saw this red, this panic right here, and it's showing the wick, but at this time it was just a huge red drop. And I said, okay, it's now below the key support area, which was right here at previous all-time highs. It's below this area. It looks like the chart's going to break down. I decided to sell, and I only made like $7,000. I was pissed because at the highest point here, I was up like $30-some thousand, and I ended up panicking out right here. I made like $7,000. I was absolutely livid. But instead of getting down on myself, instead of getting upset, what I did was, well, I noticed where the candle closed. So what I noticed here is it's holding this area as support. It closed above the previous all-time high, so it held that area as support. And what I did was just pile back into a position. Instead of saying, oh, I only made $7,000 on this trade. It was a big loss. It wasn't a big loss, but instead of being down on myself and basically like giving up on this trade, what I decided to do was just get right back into the game, because I saw where the candle closed, and I decided, okay, this trade is not over. I cannot get down on myself, because I'm going to miss a huge opportunity here. It just closed above the previous all-time high, and it's getting ready to go on a massive run. I was just so confident. And what I did, I bought like 1,000 shares or 1,500 shares. Like total on this move, I had like 2,000 shares. So I just had a ton of Litecoin. And at this point, like, I guess it was kind of FOMO, but I was just so confident, and I knew my risk level was very small because I could play off this previous all-time high level. And the next day, I just saw it absolutely shoot up, huge, strong green candle to all-time highs. So as soon as I saw this candle, I started to scale out. And again, it might have been a little dumb, but I just had so much in Litecoin. At this point, I had, between my portfolios and all my accounts and on leverage and stuff, I had like 3,000 Litecoin or so, ton of Litecoin. So I started selling it little at a time, just like I was buying 100 on the way up. Every time I was just buying 100. It wasn't much, but it was maybe 10%, maybe 5% of what I total wanted to add into my position. So same thing on the downside. As soon as I saw this huge spike, everyone's always asking, when do I take profits? When do I take profits? How do I know when to lock in my gains? Well, you do it just like you get into the position. You slowly scale out. So what I decided to do here was start selling my I think my first sell was like $122, and I just started slowly getting out of this position, selling 100 at a time. I saw that it was making these green days, going on a huge run. I saw Bitcoin go on a huge run, and I started slowly scaling out of this position. And we saw Litecoin absolutely moonshot, and I made a ton of money. This was a 6-figure trade. It was all recorded. It's in the course. You guys should go check it out if you want the commentary, step by step, what was going through my head while this was playing out, and my reactions to actually locking in 6-figure profits, which was a first for me. So that's it for this episode on scaling. I hope this helps you guys. Scaling in and out of position, remember, you only want to buy in like 10% maybe at a time. And this is looking at, I guess, longer term position. So as you're moving your stop loss up, you want to just slowly add to that position add to your winners. I don't like doing this with losers because what if that trade just goes like completely against me? Then I'm just stuck bag holding a loser, and I don't like doing that. I like adding to my winners because that's how I get massive wins. If you only have, say, a $5,000 account, well, maybe only add $500 at a time. Like, you don't have to put all 5,000 in at once. Yeah, I definitely recommend for one play you actually utilize all that, but do it slowly. Only put 500 bucks in here. It goes up a little bit. Move the stop loss up, buy a little bit more. Move the stop loss up, buy a little bit more. It works. That's how you get huge wins. So I hope this video helps you guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this Litecoin trade. And if you think you're going to utilize scaling in your strategy, or if you have been using it, I definitely recommend implementing it into your own personal strategy. So this is Matthew with Crypto Traders Pro, and we'll see you on the moon.